Okay, my friends, Roger once again, Mudfossils University. Today's going to be an interesting ramble. And that's all I'm going to do is ramble about this because I really don't know how to engage with the enormity of the subject. I am a material scientist. I take materials and I explain the materials and how they became to be the materials they are. Well, how did this become what it is? How did the Earth get here? How did this universe get here? How did everything get here? This is what I'm saying. This is going to be a ramble. I have no clue about that. And I am also going to be talking about religion, which I very rarely do, put it into a religious context. But everything comes back to some battles that happened in the heavens and maybe aliens or whatnot. But one thing I do want to say is that from what I have researched, I know that everything that was written in the past, the myths and all that stuff, are based in at least some form of fact. I mean, I found dragons, giants, and I've absolutely certainly guaranteed that what I'm showing you is real. Now, what does it all mean? First of all, there's stories about the Earth being creatures that were like immortal creatures that somehow mated and formed the Earth and the atmosphere and all this stuff. And there's all stories about Sophia, Pistis Sophia, and all of the aeons and all of the intertwining of all of these opposites, like hot and cold and up and down and hard and soft, and all of those things have to be accounted for on both sides. And apparently there's some story that there should have been partners that created the Earth, and it didn't. It was only one, and it made all these monsters because there was no two sides to it. There was no balance to the system, and it turned into an absolute monstrous disaster. And that's where we live on is Earth. And that's supposedly what they say. Now, again, just a ramble. I don't have any idea. But I do want to tell you right now, the only one that I know that I feel trust in was literally Jesus Christ. What the things that he said, nobody else was saying, that I know of. You know, about the Earth being a body, the Earth being a corpse. And a lot of the sayings, you know, that everything's here and it's all, there's a lot of sayings that Jesus Christ alone knew. He knew the things that other people didn't know. And he said, you better put your trust in me or you're in trouble. And I think I'm going to go with that at this moment. Like I said, it's just a ramble. But I don't want anybody to give up on any of their beliefs. Whatever you believe, anything you want to believe. Now, I don't want to be assaulted by people that just don't see what's in front of their face. All right? And there's groups of people that they just totally disregard what they see. And that's very upsetting to me, to show something and have them say, no, that's not right. That's just not there. It's like saying there's cars on the road. No, they're not. They're not cars. I said, yes, they are. They're cars. The cars drive down the road. Nope, they're not cars. The cars are in your mind. Those aren't cars. That's the kind of people that I deal with, and I don't deal with them anymore. I can't stand that anymore. You know, what is here is here. And you have to look at it in its entirety and understand what you're looking at. Otherwise, it's nonsense even talking to you. And the people in academia now, until they come and talk to me about the things I present and show, there's no sense talking to them either. That's just a waste of time. That is the biggest waste of time there is, to try to explain to somebody that's a PhD, perfectly happy, deluded. They just love that. Absolutely no interest whatsoever. I have not had one single question in 10 years from an academic or a scholar. I'm serious, not a single question. All I've been told is I'm stupid, I'm a tinfoil hat guy, how could anybody believe anything insane like I'm talking about? Never looking at the information, never discussing the information, no questions whatsoever. That's impossible, go away, have a nice day. That's your teachers, that's your educators and your professors. All right, you don't start thinking for yourself, you're done. Okay, now this is the Fair Use Act, so this is V Movies, and it's called Ancient Origins, the Alien Bloodline. Very good, very, very interesting. And this is basically the conclusion area, and they say up until around 5000 BC, we know that mankind had no really great civilizations. That's what they're saying. Now, are they right? I don't know. Maybe they were here and wiped out, or maybe they never were here. But they're taking the approach that we are basically from aliens. I believe that's what they're saying. And I don't think they've taken into account the things that I discovered, the dragons and all that business. So here goes.
It had been this way for millennia.
All right, so they're saying we had no civilization. It was just like this for thousands and thousands of years. And then all of a sudden, we became very sophisticated very quickly. And they claim that this is because we were led by aliens. Now, to Velikovsky, he says this happened 3,500 years ago, and every place on Earth said the same thing in their historical records. So now is the great cataclysm. Now, they say that there was nothing here for thousands and thousands, who knows how long, millennia, which is thousands of years, and then all of a sudden this happened. Well, that's possible. But from all of the bodies that are even in space, everything, as far as I can determine, there is nothing that is not biology. So that puts a whole new slant on things. I don't think they have any clue about that from what they're discussing now, but let's just keep going.
Judgment from above. The gods were angry and dealt humanity a cruel blow. These tales are worldwide. Civilization erupted, and great learning spread far and wide. The all-powerful symbol of the swastika emerged, which is in reality 4 serpents overlapping. Serpent rock art appears all over the world.
I just want to make a statement. You know that all the things I found, I'm finding dragons everywhere, literally everywhere. And these were the serpent gods that they're talking about. They were all recorded as well. Everybody thought they were just silly. Now, they're saying this formed the swastika for serpents entangled like this. And that's possible, but here goes.
A great and powerful image of a horned god now begins to find itself everywhere. This is the Lord of the animals, the image of the one who had all knowledge. In the Bible, he would become the one we know as Moses, the wielder of the serpent staff, the teacher of his people. The one who would raise up the brazen serpent in the wilderness to protect his special people from other serpents. This is the period that Enoch tells us was the time of war between those who had come down from the sky, the angels, the Nephilim, the Shining Ones. These were the great shining serpents who had magical flaming swords and wheel-like or disc-like ships that flew around the sky. As the scribe of the Shining Ones, Enoch himself was shielded from death and taken away by the aliens to live out his days in heaven. Christians today know him as the man who walked with God, and the reason is simple. God came down to earth and walked on our soil, spoke with Enoch, and then returned. Whatever this means, it does reveal that ancient man witnessed something remarkable. In truth, this was the period of the ancient invasion of planet Earth by the shining race of serpents who came from the sky. Our ancestors worshipped them for their amazing power, and yet, in our modern scientific age, we can now see things more clearly.
All right, that's a statement that I have to address. Are they saying that there was no dragons, that there was no crazy creatures that we see, the things that I have discovered, giants and all that business? They're just saying that they were aliens. Now, that's fine, and they were, let's say they were aliens. Well, how did humanity get here? That's the key. Where did we start? If these people are the aliens and they came here and taught us stuff, well, where did we come from in the beginning? And I have like no toes, which is a feet of creatures that are not human, and I have all kinds of different information about, and people have sent me things about other creatures that they have actually in their possession. Where did all those things come from? Is it just a superior technology? I don't know. This is very, very confusing. All right, let's just jump back here a minute, because I think they're just really into alien, it's just totally aliens, came here, and we were just an unsophisticated planet, and they gave us sophistication, let's say. And in the meantime, they had wars between each other trying to take groups of people, and I don't know what whether they were using them for some purpose or whether they just wanted to own them or whatever. But apparently certain gods wanted to control groups of people. And here goes. Let's just play it again here.
Feel that ancient man witnessed something remarkable. In truth, this was the period of the ancient invasion of planet Earth by the shining race of serpents who came from the sky. Our ancestors worshipped them for their amazing power, and yet, in our modern science...
Let me just say something. Every moon is actually a body part. The asteroids and meteorites and meteors in space are body parts. I have found nothing that is not biological. Even Venus' great red spot, Jupiter's great red spot is literally a vagina that gave birth to Venus, which is what created the great flood and the boiling hot water flood that created all the mudfossils 3,500 years ago. I know they don't take this into account. They're just talking about a superior race that came here. They were just aliens and they took over a bunch of stupid humans. No, I don't think that's the case. I believe that as they talk about the ancient myths and all these Greek stuff, that's not all nonsense. No, I believe that's based in fact. And if we read Appolodorus, and we probably will at some point, and you really have to read Immanuel Velikovsky, who has all the recorded history of these events unfolding. Now, they were writing about these dragons and everything else at the same time. They knew about all these creatures. It was nothing. They were here, and they had to be wiped out because they were destroying the earth. And it's apparently Jupiter which is the feared god Jupiter, which is the planet Jupiter, gave birth to Venus, which was the fiery god Venus, and it almost hit Earth and caused a great hot water flood. I'm sure they have no idea about this in this presentation, but they're looking to aliens. Now, the serpents appear to be, I just don't know anymore. There's so many different facets to this. It's very difficult to put it in an orderly manner, but I can tell you what. As far as I can determine, from Velikovsky's research and from my research, the things that had been written about dragons and monsters and giants and all of that stuff is material fact. And it's all happened 3,500 years ago. It's all on the surface of this earth. It's very, very confusing after that. Are these people actually, these creatures, immortal? Are they still here? Where are they if they are? Have they morphed? Metamorphosis was a book by Ovid that was written back in the BC eras that talked about these gods being able to morph and change to anything they wanted to do. They could become mushrooms. I'm serious. They could become birds and plants and animals. They could become constellations. They could become rivers and wind and so forth. They had no limitations as to what they could change themselves into. And it appears that they saw women on Earth and decided that they were going to change themselves into God, like looking, I mean, every one of them looked like a male model. They came down and had sex with the women as morphing into these very, very attractive male figures. And they did say, Metamorphosis says, they could do this all day long. And the first words in his Epic, which is it was just as well read as the Bible at this time. The first things he said was, I am here to tell you about the gods that could change, that changed people, or, well, hold on, let me get the exact words. All right, this goes back a long time ago. It's called Metamorphosis. Latin narrative from, they say in 8 CE, by the Roman poet Ovid, considered his magnum opus. The poem chronicles history of the world from the creation to deification of Julius Caesar in a mythological, historical framework. 250 myths that they thought were myths, all things that were just silly sort of stuff. And they call this a poem. Well, it's all of these books. Here's the thing right here. It says, Metamorphosis or transformation, the unifying theme amongst all the episodes of the Metamorphoses. Now listen to this. In the opening lines, he says, I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities. And it says, accompanying this theme is often violence inflicted upon a victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape. And that's what I have found. A natural landscape is creatures. See this? There is a great variety among the types of transformations, from human to objects like the Nile River, the constellations, from animals, from ants to funguses to mushrooms to humans to hyenas to pebbles. You could change them to anything. And then they think this is all a big joke. They write it. The metamorphoses themselves are often located metatextually within a poem through grammatical and narrative transformations. At other times, transformations are developed into humor or absurdity. Well, they are absurd. And they're crazy and they're laughable, yes, but they're true. And they're saying the reader realizes he's being had. No, he's not. He's being told the truth. All right, like I said, this is an absolute mind blower, but this is ancient Greek religion and mythology, and Demeter is the sister of Zeus. Now, she is one of the kids from the child of the Titans, Rhea and Kronos. I'll say so. Rhea and Kronos gave birth to seven kids, and they were all swallowed by Kronos, except Zeus. Zeus was rescued by his mother. She was upset. Rhea was upset that Kronos was eating the kids, and he ate them because it was foretold that one of them would kill him or something like that, would take over, and it was Zeus, and he did. And so anyway, the Titans, Rhea and Kronos, they had the sisters. Was Demeter's sister was all of these: Hestia, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. Now Zeus was not swallowed like her other siblings, except Zeus. She was swallowed by her father as an infant and rescued by Zeus. And that's when it all started. Now, let me tell you, and this is just written, and I think it's true. All right, let's just pick it up from here. I just told you about Demeter. She was one of the daughters of Kronos and Rhea. Now, and it says after Demeter, the earth was vexed on account of the Titans, brought forth the giants, whom she had by sky. All right, so the giants were born from some interaction with the sky. These were matchless in bulk, their bodies, and invincible in their might, terrible of aspect that they appear with long locks drooping from their head and chin, scales of dragons for feet. They were born, as some say, in Phlegrae, but according to others in Pallene, and they darted rocks and burning oaks at the sky, surpassing all the rest were Porphyrion and Alcalus, who were even immortal so long as he fought in the land of his birth. They dragged him out and killed him. He also drove away the cows of the sun from Erythea. Now the gods had an oracle that none of the giants could perish at the hand of gods, but that with the help of a mortal they would be made an end of. Learning of this, Earth sought for a simple to prevent the giants from being destroyed even by a mortal. But Zeus forbade the dawn and the moon and the sun to shine, and then, before anybody else could get it, he culled the simple himself, and by means of Athens summoned Hercules to his help. Hercules first shot Alcinous with an arrow, but when the giant fell on the ground, he somewhat revived. However, at Athena's advice, Hercules dragged him outside of Pallene, where he was born, and so the giant died. He couldn't die in his own homeland. This is crazy stuff, I know. Let's just cut right down to, it goes down to all kinds of crazy things. You want to read this, you should. It's the Appolodorus library. This was written, I think, about 180 BC, before Christ. And this was all the ancient history of the earth and Hercules and Zeus and all of these monsters, the Cyclopses, and Typhon. Typhon is the one. That's the dragon that's in the desert. Now listen to this. When the gods had overcome the giants, so now they had fought the giants and killed them, got them. Other giants Zeus smote and destroyed with thunderbolts, and all of them Hercules shot with arrows as they were dying. So now they got rid of all the giants. So when the gods had overcome the giants, earth was still more enraged. It had intercourse. Earth had intercourse with Tartarus, which is basically like hell, and brought forth Typhon. He's the dragon in the desert, a hybrid between man and beast. In size and strength, he surpassed all of anything that earth had ever given, all the offspring of earth. As far as his thighs go, his leg thighs, he was of human shape. His thighs were human. And his bulk was so prodigious, he outtopped all the mountains. His head often brushed the stars. And then it goes on to talk about he had dragons' heads, and his body was all winged and unkempt and streaming from his hair, and his red flashing eyes, and and now then it talks about how he was chasing the other gods. Listen to this. This sounds crazy. His body was all winged, unkempt, hair streamed on a wind from the head and cheeks, and fire flashed from his eyes, which I'll show you. He had red flashing eyes. Such and so great was Typhon, when hurling kindled rocks, he made for the very heaven with hissing and shouts, spouting a great jet of fire from his mouth. And yes, I can show you that too. But when the gods saw him rushing at heaven, they made for Egypt in flight, and being pursued, they changed their forms into those of animals. However, Zeus pelted Typhon at a distance, and then it goes on to how he cut him with his thunderbolts, and then it goes on and on and on. It's just absolutely crazy. And all of this stuff this is according to Hesiod. Earth was impregnated by the blood which dropped from heaven when Cronus' testicles were cut off. When Cronus mutilated his father, the sky, Uranus. I mean, it's just crazy, 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 crazy stuff. But it's now starting to look like it's true. Typhon is in the desert. There's no question about that. And he's exactly the way they portrayed him.